aspirants. My name is Sumit Saudatti, and today I am going to take you through a session of current affairs. So in current affairs, recently one issue has been doing a lot of rounds. Even in your newspapers or your national debates, this issue has gained a maximum spotlight, and that is one nation, one election. So today we will be getting into the subject, deep diving into it and trying to understand it from the government exams perspective, right? Shall we begin the case? Okay. So why is it in the news? Why is one election, one nation in the news? Recently, the government of India has tabled the constitutional bill, the constitutional amendment bill number 129. Along with it, there is also another bill, the Union Territories Amendment Laws Bill. So these both bills, which form the part of one nation, one election, have been tabled in the Lok Sabha. They have been tabled in the Lok Sabha, right? So that is why this issue has been gaining a spotlight. So let us try and understand from the perspective of passing, right? The passing of this bill. What is required to pass these bills, right? So the first bill, this first bill, it requires a majority of 2/3 majority in the Lok Sabha, right? The first bill, which is a constitution amendment bill, as you have read in your political science as well, you would be requiring 2/3 of majority to pass through the bill in the Lok Sabha. And the second bill, which is the Union Territories Amendment Laws Bill, this bill is related to the Union Territories, and this bill can be passed with a simple majority because it is treated as an ordinary bill. So these two bills, they form a part of one nation, one election bill, right? Are you getting the point? Fine. So let us move ahead now. Now, since as you know, the Lok Sabha is dominated by both the ruling parties as well as the opposition parties. In the opposition, there are many regional parties also. So the deadlock has been reached. I mean, the government, it is now trying to start a consultation process. It is trying to start a consultation process with the opposition parties who are not agreeing with this deal. So that is the reason why it has been referred to the Joint Parliamentary Committee consisting of members from both the houses of the parliament. When I say both the houses, I mean Lok Sabha as well as Rajya Sabha. So it is nothing but a parliamentary procedure where members belonging to both the houses of the parliament, that is Rajya Sabha and Lok Sabha, would be formed in that committee. They would be present in that committee. So what will they do? They will get into the subject. They will do an in-depth examination of that one nation, one election process, and with that they will also try to start negotiations and consultations to reach a consensus and fruitful bring this bill to fruition, right? This bill. So that is a basic parliamentary democratic procedure which is known as Joint Parliamentary Committee, and the bill, since it is a bit debated, that is why it has been referred to a Joint Parliamentary Committee. So this is the basic thing which you will have to keep in mind, and this is why it has been in the news, right? So now, since we know why it has been in the news, let us try and understand, let us have a brief historical outlook of these simultaneous elections. So this is not the first time India has been, there's a law which is being, framed to implement the simultaneous elections. This was not always true. When India got independent, right? It got independent in the year 1947, right? From 1947 to 52, there was an interim government. After the end of this interim government, to elect the first Lok Sabha, elections were due. The elections were conducted from December 1951 to February 1952. There were polls to elect the first Lok Sabha, right? So after the first Lok Sabha, after these elections, when the first Lok Sabha was elected, starting from 1952 to 1967, without having a bill for simultaneous elections, there were simultaneous elections in our body polity, which means the simultaneous elections, the elections for the Lok Sabha and various state assemblies of respective states, right? All the elections to respective state assemblies of states as well as Lok Sabha were conducted simultaneously from the year 1952 to 1967, which includes first term of Lok Sabha from 1952 to 57. The second term of Lok Sabha starts from 1957 to 62. Then the third term which is from 1962 to 67. So in these intervening 15 years, right? In these intervening 15 years, there were no simultaneous polls. A bill was not passed to conduct these simultaneous polls. But however, the body politic was such that the polls to the state assemblies as well as the Lok Sabha was conducted simultaneously, right? So, but after what happened after this? Why was it not continued? It was not continued because in the late 60s, and which means somewhere around 68 and 69, in 1968 and 69, there were some state assemblies which were dissolved before the completion of their regular tenure, right? So that was the first step where few of the states got derailed from the simultaneous election setup. And also in the early 1970s, the Lok Sabha too was dissolved. It was dissolved by the then Prime Minister Indira Gandhi. So we can say that from the late 1960s to early 70s, this was the period when the simultaneous elections were not taking part. Why? Because there were some state assemblies which were dissolved prematurely, hence they were not in that scheme of simultaneous elections. And also the central government in the early 70s, it got dissolved, right? It got dissolved. So that is how that synchronization between the Lok Sabha as well as the state assemblies got derailed, right? I hope you are getting the point. Now, since the election was not going on simultaneously, the Election Commission of India, I hope you guys understand that the Election Commission of India is the sole authority to conduct elections to the Lok Sabha as well as the state assemblies. So after 70s, there was irregular bout of elections going on. There were some states where elections were conducted for some time, and then there were some other states, and then there was general election. So this process took an entire decade. The Election Commission of India, which had the responsibility to conduct all these elections, it gained an experience. It gained an experience of a decade, and in the year 1983, the Election Commission of India mooted the idea. It brought the idea of simultaneous elections to the forefront. There was a kind of discussion going on within the ECI, as well as there was an idea which was put forward by ECI in the year 1983 to revert back to the system of simultaneous polls, right? So the ECI was the pioneer of this one nation, one election idea. But however, there were decades where nothing happened actually. Nothing actually happened. So again, in the year 1999, right? In the year 1999, the 170th report of the Law Commission, the 170th report of the Law Commission, what did it do? It recommended simultaneous polls. So not only the 170th report, again in the year 2015, the 255th report, of the same Law Commission also recommended simultaneous polls. Along with that, again in the year 2018, same Law Commission, again it recommended the simultaneous polls. So what is the outcome of this? Why is this Law Commission, why it keeps on recommending one nation, one election, simultaneous elections? So this Law Commissions, this nudge from the Law Commission, it kind of started a debate, a discussion inside the government as well as the public, right? When the law commission started recommending it, the government officials, the policy makers, the opinion makers, the academics, the public, all of them, they started having a discussion, deep discussion inside them. So one among those people were the Niti Aayog. The Niti Aayog, it started a study under the famed economist Bibek Devroy. You will have to remember this name. This gentleman was an economist as well as a reputed policymaker who has recently passed away in the month of November, if I'm not wrong. So this study was headed by this reputed economist as well as policymaker. So he started a study by Niti Aayog where this study, it recommended the simultaneous polls in the year 2017. So I hope you're getting the point. This idea of simultaneous elections, which has been recommended by all the law commissions as well as study, it kind of it needed a brainstorming thing, right? So what did these studies and these commissions do? They were nudging the idea of simultaneous elections. Looking at all these developments, the government finally constituted a high-level committee in the year 2023. And it was headed by former President of India, Mr. Ramnath Kovind. And that committee is also known as Ramnath Kovind Committee. And the members of that committee were all eminent people, eminent persons from various walks of life. Say, for example, Union Minister Amit Shah, and then the ex-leader of opposition from the Rajya Sabha, Mr. Ghulam Nabi Azad. And then there was N.K. Singh, who was the chairman of 15th Finance Commission. Then there was a legal luminary like Harish Salve. And then also Sanjay Kothari, who was also the commissioner, the chief commissioner of CVC. And there are many such eminent people who were in this committee. And these people who were a part of this Ramnath Kovind committee, they submitted a report. This committee submitted a report in the year 2024. What did they say? They said that simultaneous polls to Lok Sabha, state assemblies, and Panchayat Raj institutions. Panchayat Raj institutions, which includes Gram Panchayat, Taluk Panchayat, Jilla Panchayat. Along with them, the polls to the local municipal bodies and town councils should be held. But they told that the Lok Sabha and state assemblies should be held simultaneously, and the elections to the Panchayat Raj institutions as well as municipal bodies should be held within 100 days after concluding the elections to both Lok Sabha and state assemblies. This was their recommendation. You'll have to keep this point in mind, right? I hope everything is clear. Let us move to the next slide. So why is there a need? Why is the government, why did the government establish a high-level committee, and why is it passing a bill to have one nation, one elections, right? The government felt that it is always in a mode of elections. Why is the government feeling that? Why? Because as you guys know, India is a union of states. There are 28 states and 7 union territories in India, right? So per year, on an average, there are at least 6 to 7 states who go to polls regularly, year on year, right? Year on year, 6 to 7 states in a year, they go to the polls. And when 6 to 7 states, which is a high number, which is a considerably high number, right? When these number of states, they go to the polls, the election machinery and the focus of the government is shifted towards elections. And this was turning out to be a drawback, because government was not able to focus on development projects as well as governance, right? That is their prime duty. But since elections are held on a regular basis, year on year basis, at least 6 to 7 states along with the general elections go to the polls every year. So that is the reason why the government was not able to focus on its mandated work, right? So that is why these elections were turning out to be a roadblock to the governance issues as well as development. So that is why, to end this perpetual cycles of elections, the government is now planning to have election once in 5 years for all the state assemblies as well as Lok Sabha, right? So this is the primary reason. And the second reason is that when elections are announced, the model code of conduct, comes into play. So what do you understand by this model code of conduct? Model code of conduct is nothing but rules and regulations which are set by the Election Commission of India for the government, for political parties, as well as those people who are trying for the post, like politicians. So under this model code of conduct, when it gets implemented, when the elections are announced, this model code of conduct gets implemented. So when this model code of conduct is implemented, the government cannot announce any new policies, any new policy measures, or nor can it announce or implement developmental projects, right? So this situation kind of leads to policy paralysis. So to stop this, to get away from this policy paralysis, the government is now looking at focusing on having one nation, one elections. I hope you're getting the point. I hope all the points are clear. Can we go to the next slide? So now, since we have understood what simultaneous elections or one nation, one elections are, let us now look into the pros of one nation, one election, right? The election expenditure, let us start from the finance. We'll start from the finance angle first. The election expenditure for the year 2009 was 1200 crores. Then for the all these figures are only for the general elections as in elections to the Lok Sabha. It does not include state assemblies. In the year 2009 we had a general election, right, to elect the Lok Sabha. So in 2009 the entire budget of that election was 1200 crores. Now again in the year 2014 this expenditure increased to 3900 crores. This is almost an increase of 3 times. This has increased by 3 times, right? I hope you can see. So there was an eminent chief commissioner of Election Commission of India. His name is Dr. S.Y. Qureshi. He has recently told in various media outlets as well as the newspapers, he has written articles where he has said that the expenditure for 2019 elections was 10,000 crore. 10,000 crore. This is what he said. Now, if you calculate, this is almost an increase of 3 times again. And going by this standard, if we extrapolate the numbers for the elections of 2024, it is generally believed that the expenses have now shooted to 30,000 crores, which is again 3 times higher than the last time. So as you can see, to conduct a general election, the Election Commission of India or the Government of India has to set aside a very huge amount of money. Now let us just for the sake of brevity, let us just include these numbers. Let us try and extrapolate these numbers. This is only about the general election. Now let us look at the states. There are 28 states, right? There are 28 states. Again, 7 union territories. Now let us, for the sake of brevity, let us consider a number. Let us say 500 crores. 500 crores is required to conduct election in a particular state. So now, will for the sake of brevity, let us consider this as 30, right? So 30 into 500. Elections in 30 states. Per state, expenditure is 500 crores. So 3 5s are 13 2 is nothing but 15,000 crores. So now just imagine the government has to spend for the year 2024, starting from the year 2024, it has to spend 30,000 plus 15,000 crores. If you add these, 45,000 crores. 45,000 crores would be the financial need to conduct the elections for both the central government as well as the state assemblies. Don't you think this is a gigantic number? As per the reports of Niti Aayog, they are saying that if simultaneous polls are conducted, right, we can save 40 to 50% of this amount. 40 to 50% of this amount of 45,000 rupees, 45,000 crores. 45,000, 50% of 45,000 is 22.5, 22,500 CR. So this amount can be used for some developmental works, right? This amount which we are spending on elections for the state assemblies as well as the the parliamentary elections, that amount can be now saved if the elections are held simultaneously for the Lok Sabha as well as the state assemblies, right? So this is what the Niti Aayog is telling. So we will be able to save financially a very high amount of money which can be used for other developmental purposes. I hope this point is clear. The finance part will be reduced. The financial burden to conduct elections on the government of India will be reduced. Taxpayers' money will be used for some other developmental works, right? I hope I'm clear with this. Now the second point, or the second benefit of having elections, simultaneous elections, is to conduct a general election, right? It is reported that there is a need of 10 lakh personnel. When I say personnel, they all include election officers, returning officers, and the security required to conduct those elections, as well as polling officers, booth level officers. All these officers across the country, the number of people required to conduct these elections, the general election, is 10 lakhs. And these 10 lakh people, they are all government employees. So they are sourced from various departments, and those departments are nothing but the education department, where we source teachers. Then there are banking officials. Then there are nurses, and these people who work on the front lines, right? So during the elections, they are deputed under the Election Commission of India to undertake polls, right? So these number of people, if they are called again and again for the conduct of elections, don't you think the people who are regularly working as teachers, bankers and nurses, they will be hampering the role which they were chosen to do? A banking official who is deputed by the ECI and who is been called regularly to get the election work done, don't you think his non-presence in the banking sector harms the entire working of banking area? Don't you think this is a possibility? A teacher who normally teaches in the school, and she is regularly called up for election duties, don't you think her teaching duties in her school are hampered? This is what is happening. We are sourcing 10 lakh people regularly for the conduct of elections to the state assemblies as well as the general elections, right? So if simultaneous elections are conducted where state and central elections are synchronized, these 10 lakh people would be called up for only once, right? They wouldn't be called up regularly for the elections of the state, and for the elections of the parliamentary they wouldn't be called once, twice or thrice. They would be called once in 5 years, and that will increase our administrative efficiency, right? The state officials, the officials who are employed by the government, if they are not involved in election work regularly, and if they are involved in the regular work for which they have chosen, they do their job, I think the administrative efficiency will be increased. So this is the second pro point. I hope this is clear. And the other one is that as per the report of Niti Aayog, report, the model code of conduct which is implemented at the launch of election cycle, it hampers the governance for 6 to 9 months. This is what is said by the Niti Aayog. the governance, which I think this point has already been reiterated once again earlier, even the government was feeling the same. As per the Niti Aayog, the model code of conduct, which is applied when elections are launched, this model code of conduct hampers the governance for the period of 6 to 9 months, right? Again, the other point is also very important, and I've already discussed this, right? So it also reduces the policy paralysis, and simultaneous elections will provide a kind of political stability to our system, to our polity. If there is political stability in our polity, there will be a lot many investments coming from the abroad, and also the people, the private investment of our domestic economy will also increase. The consumption will increase. That will increase our economic performance as well as economic predictability, right? If we are in a stable political setup, we will have many investments coming from the abroad. We will also have investments coming from the domestic economy, and this will definitely increase our economic performance. Why? Because our economic predictability will increase. Our political stability provides economic predictability to our polity and economy, right? I hope you are clear with the pros. Let us look into cons. So let us look into cons. There's this very senior bureaucrat. He is the ex-Secretary General of Lok Sabha. His name is PDT Acharya. PDT Acharya. He has given many interviews and also has written many newspaper articles where he has highlighted that holding simultaneous polls actually is against the federalism, the spirit of federalism, and that federalism is a basic structure of constitution. This is what he is saying. So what do we mean by that? Say for example, in the year 2029, somehow India will have simultaneous elections. In the year 2029, simultaneous elections. Before having these simultaneous elections, in the year 2027, let us assume that two states of India, that is Chhattisgarh and Rajasthan. Chhattisgarh and Rajasthan are going to the polls. Now, in these both states, there's a government which is formed, and the government which forms, it has a mandate of say 5 years. 5 years. So their tenure would be ending by 2032, right? So now, if in the year 2029, if we are having simultaneous elections, don't you think the tenure, the assembly tenure of both these states should be cut by another 3 years? So that means the state assemblies tenure would end by 2029. If the tenure of state assemblies, if they end by 2029, don't you think there is a loss of 3 years? And this loss of 3 years is actually a curtailment of the state assembly tenure. And this PDT Acharya, this former bureaucrat, says that it is against the spirit of federalism, and that is nothing but the basic structure of the constitution. And to implement this simultaneous polls, the tenures of state legislators have to be curtailed, and this curtailment of tenure of state assemblies is actually against the spirit of federalism, and federalism is a basic structure of our constitution. So this is what he is saying, right? I hope you are getting the point. Now let us look at the second point. It says that frequent elections enhance accountability, right? Say for example, in the year 2024, BJP had promised us many promises, but it could not deliver. However, in the year 2020, if we have elections in Karnataka, keeping in mind the delivery of promises of the BJP in 2024 in the state, if we are not satisfied, we can not bring them to power in the year 2026 in our state assembly. This is what happens regularly, right? So the frequent elections which are held regularly, what does it do? It enhances the accountability of political parties. The political parties and politicians will have incentives to go back to the voter. If they are going towards the voter regularly, they will have to be accountable, and there will be an incentive for the political parties to reach out to all the electorate regularly. But if we implement simultaneous elections, there would be elections only once in 5 years. So what does that do? The incentive from the political parties as well as politicians to go back to the electorate decreases. Why? Because they are very much comfortable. They are very much sure that they have a 5 years of safe tenure. 5 years of safe tenure, right? These 5 years, the tenure which they have gotten from these elections, they will have no incentive to go back to the electorate again. Why? Because there are no elections. The elections to the state assemblies as well as the Lok Sabha has been concluded, and for the upcoming 5 years, the politicians will not go to or they won't reach out to the electorate. This is what the drawback of simultaneous elections is. The other one is that the voting behavior of the people who are voting, they will always end up favoring the central parties, the national parties. This has been generally, we've got the experience of the countries which have already simultaneous elections in them. They have encountered this problem, right? The voters, they do not look into the local issues as well as the regional issues. They only focus on national issues when it is about simultaneous election. The other problem with simultaneous elections is about the administrative and logistic challenges. A country like India, which is the 7th largest country in the world, with a population of, right now, we do not have any census report as of now, but it is believed that India is the most populated country in the world, and the most populated country and the 7th largest country geographically. Conducting elections simultaneously will pose logistical and administrative challenges, because we will have to bring so many people into the election system. We will have to appoint many personals to conduct these elections, and there would be logistical problems, because conducting elections in northern part of India, in Jammu and Kashmir, and then conducting in Manipur, Nagaland, and then conducting it on the same day in Tamil Nadu would pose a huge challenge. So these are the challenges which are there, which we will encounter in simultaneous polls, right? Now let us look at some global examples. As I told you, there are many countries which have already implemented simultaneous polls, and one among them are South Africa and Sweden. In South Africa, as I've already told you, in South Africa, the experience is such that the people over there, they prefer national parties. They prefer national parties over regional and local parties. And that is the reason why there's a party known as African National Congress. This party has been dominating the polity of South Africa till now, from 1991 to till date. This is the only party that has been in the power. After apartheid, when it was manned by Nelson Mandela, this party is still in power. This is what our experience from South Africa says. Right, now let us look into Sweden. What does Sweden say? In Sweden, it is noted that people generally do not consider local and regional issues. They are only fixated towards national issues. When I say national issues, it includes environmentalism, foreign policy, military policy. These are the local electorate or the people of Sweden. They are very much concerned about these issues than their local and regional issues. The local issues would be like proper drinking water, sewerage. All these issues would be overshadowed. These issues which are local would be overshadowed by national issues. This has been the experience which we are getting from Sweden, right? Then again in the US, there is also another term called as election fatigue, because they will have to go there and elect their local senator, vice president, president, then also the local board member, as well as city councils, municipalities. So a person in the US, on the same day he has to elect 3 to 5 officials, right? So even if we hold simultaneous elections in India, even we, the people of India, might also go through this election fatigue. Why? Because at the same time we will have to elect our MP, member of parliament, and then the local MLA, and after him the local representative. Local representative as in the person, if you are in living in an urban area, you will have to elect your own corporator, or if you are living in a rural areas, you will have to elect the member of Gram Panchayat. So this might cause election fatigue, right? This has been the global experience, right? Election fatigue, the preference of national parties, and the preference of national issues are some of the experience which we are getting from the global level. So what are the alternatives? So what are the alternatives? Let us look at the alternatives. As the alternatives, many academics and intellectuals have suggested that the elections will have to be bundled as in some group of states have to go polls simultaneously based on their geography or their regionality or language or whatever it is, all the states in India must be divided into some clusters or categories or groups, and those groups will have to go to the polls simultaneously. This has been the first alternative which has been suggested by intellectuals, academicians, and the legal practitioners. And the second one is that people have told, the people who are into knowing the things, they have told that simultaneous elections should be applied in India in a phased manner, in a phase-wise manner. What do they mean? They mean that in the year 2029, let there be Lok Sabha and state assembly elections. Then again, by the time when the next general elections are due in the year 2034, we can go with Lok Sabha, state assemblies, and Panchayat Raj institutions, right? So there should be some gap between implementation of simultaneous polls, right? This is what the other suggestion which has been given by the experts, right? So I hope you guys have thoroughly understood what one nation, one election has to offer. Now let us try and understand some questions, right? Let us try and answer some questions, right? This is a model question with respect to one nation, one bill tabled in the parliament. Consider the following statements. The first statement is the bill includes elections to the Lok Sabha, state assemblies, and Panchayat Raj institutions and municipalities. Right? Statement number one. Statement number two, to pass the bill, 2/3 of majority in parliament as well as more than 50% of states have to ratify the bill. This is statement number two. Now let us look what this question is asking. Which among the following options is correct? Which among the following options is correct? Let us look at statement number one. The bill includes elections to the Lok Sabha, state assemblies, and Panchayat Raj institutions. It is not true. This part is not true. This part is not true. But this part is true. Yes, the bill includes elections to Lok Sabha as well as state assemblies. This is what the bill says. So this statement is wrong. The Ramnath Kovind committee, which was formed to study the simultaneous elections, had actually recommended the inclusion of Panchayat Raj institutions as well as municipalities. But the bill which has been tabled in the Lok Sabha does not include this. Does not include this part, Panchayat Raj institutions and municipalities. Let us look at statement number two. To pass the bill, 2/3 majority in parliament as well as more than 50% of states have to ratify the bill. This is wrong. Even this statement is wrong. Why? Because 50% of states do not have to ratify the bill. It only requires 2/3 majority to pass the bill. Hence, this statement number two is wrong. Statement number two would be right when Panchayat Raj institutions and municipalities had also been included in the bill. If Panchayat Raj institutions and municipalities had been included in the bill, then 2/3 majority as well as 50% of states had to ratify this bill. But since we have not included Panchayat Raj institutions and municipalities, 50%, the ratification of 50% of states is not required. So both the statements are wrong. So it is option D, none of these. Let us look into some other question. Which country in Asia has recently concluded its simultaneous elections? Right? The options are Indonesia, China, Kazakhstan, Turkey. The correct answer is Indonesia. In Indonesia, simultaneous polls are held. That is one among the very few countries who have this arrangement of simultaneous elections. Right? Okay. Let us look at some questions from mains as well as essay perspective. Right? In the mains, you might get a question like this: list out the essential features of constitutional amendment bill, one nation, one election. Is it beneficial? Is it beneficial to a polity like India? And what alternatives do you suggest? You might get these questions. If you have gone through the slides, I hope you will be getting the answer easily to this question. And let this be open-ended essay writing thing. One nation, one election bill is both a boon and a bane to our country. You will have to think it through. You will have to work on it. But I have given you all the tools to make you understand the concept of one nation, one election. Please try and understand it and try and answer these questions. This ends my session. Thank you. Thank you so much.